Hello, everybody. My name is Joey from the Chart Guys here to check in on the markets. Going to look at the semiconductors. We know it's been a semi and memory driven rally, and they are at a key spot here where we are either going to have a character shift for the first time in over a year, or the show will go on. So, I'm going to find out here in the coming days what we're getting. We are seeing a ton of rotation in the market, so the overall markets are healthy, and we'll have a look at where that money's going and how long we can anticipate that money to go into those places. So let's get on into it on the charts here, and we'll just go ahead and start off with SMH. So here we are testing weekly 12 EMA. We've lost it on SMH a couple of times since the April tariff lows of 2025. But what is really important to me is this SMH QQQ ratio, and that has been riding clean since the tariff lows. And here we are at this weekly 12 EMA. And you may say this looks familiar because it does. It just happened on the 2-day 12 EMA. We were riding 2-day 12 EMA, and then once that was lost, that's really when this shift came about for semiconductors. And that's the cool thing about the fractal nature of this game. Once you lose one, you just zoom out to the next time frame and you really just do the same thing on that next time frame. So you only have to learn the game once, and then you've just got to figure out how it all nests together. So here we are. If bulls show up, then the status quo remains and semiconductors can remain healthy at the highs. If we lose weekly EMA on this ratio chart, then we're going to anticipate that SMH is going to follow, and we're going to see some monthly consolidation. In the semiconductor space. And that would not be surprising because we know that Korea is very semiconductor heavy and has been essentially going lockstep with SMH. You look at the SMH chart, the semiconductor ETF there, and then you look at the Kospi, and they've been trading very correlated. And we've got monthly consolidation underway in the Kospi. So would it be surprising to see it in SMH after the bonkers move that we have gone on? No, it would not be surprising at all. So I'm keeping eyes on that ratio. I've been keeping eyes on this ratio for a while. I post about it in the chart guys all the time, certainly, but also post about it on my Twitter. So this is from July 2nd, talking about this character shift potentially getting underway. And that ended up playing out, and it's been a different deal since we lost that 2-day 12 EMA. That's what this post was about here. So if you want to see all my stuff on Twitter talking about all these things ahead of time, check me out at junglefunk_ here. Would love to have you. So let's go through and look at a few other individual semiconductor names, and everybody's pretty much in a similar deal. You got SNDK, of course, memory, not semiconductor, but part of the same gang. Been riding weekly 12 EMA for ages. We're down testing it right now. If that's lost, that's monthly consolidation follow through. We technically have popped the monthly stair step for the first time ever, more or less. Popped it a little bit back here in March, but if we lose weekly 12 EMA, then that's going to be that follow through. You've got a very clear ledge of support. It's popping without follow through a couple times here, so bulls are hoping that that can lead to a hold, but you kind of just don't want to battle the forces of the market too much. We know this has been an amazing run. We know we've got capital rotating elsewhere. If bears show you that they're here, you've got to just respect it. So many people will lose their hats trying to continue to treat semiconductors how they've been able to treat them through the whole run where semis have been leading. And I'm not saying the shift is here now. We're going to take a reactive approach. The shift will come, and when the shift comes, we'll accept it and we won't fight against it. And if you continue to treat semis and memory how you've been treating them for the last year, once we get this shift, you will lose your hat. So you've got to just be able to know when, all right, the show's over. It was great while it lasted. Now what we're talking about on the 2-day, out to the weekly, then that goes out to the monthly. And monthly higher lows are going to be on deck for all these names. And if you can ride down there unscathed, then purchase those monthly higher lows. It's a fantastic opportunity. If you end up getting all battered and bruised on the way down there to the monthly higher low, then you lose that opportunity and you're just hoping to get back to break even or whatever. So you got to just take what the chart's giving you, not what you want from the charts. MU, same deal. You got this clear line in the sand for support. You got weekly 12 EMA coming back into play. TSM weekly 12 EMA, LRCX weekly 12 EMA. AMD is a bit off of weekly 12 EMA, so kind of that same character that we were talking about last week, where it's holding on better than peers. That remains the case at this point. So the question is AMD going to be a laggard bear? Should the rest of these semiconductors see some consolidation? We don't know, but time will tell. The ratio chart will certainly give a clue into that. You got INTC down testing weekly support of 98.33. It is holding by a buck right now. If it holds, watching for a head and shoulders. If it's lost, then we'll say that's some monthly consolidation shaping on up. And the market likes to move in this kind of follow the leader sense within sectors, between sectors. So when you've got the Kospi seeing monthly consolidation and SNDK now seeing monthly consolidation, though we know it needs to lose that weekly 12 EMA to see follow through, it just every one that falls increases the odds that others will fall. You see it in the metal space, you see it in the uranium space, you see it in crypto, you see it in big tech, you see it between the major indices. It's just how the markets move. So you got to look around for your context clues. And right now, context clues are saying perhaps we've got some rotation out of our leaders here. So if we're getting rotation out of our leaders, where's it going? One of the big places it's going is mags. And we look at this here, and it's just a daily uptrend nearing all-time highs again. So if we get new all-time highs, we will have to watch out for the potential of a rising wedge if we were to get new all-time highs without follow-through. But for the time being, just keeping our eyes on that daily uptrend. You got Apple making a strong push into new all-time highs here. Let's see, we are monthly 12 EMA rider at this point, pushing to all-time highs. You got a daily uptrend as your guide for tight bull control, lots of room for a weekly higher low. And Apple QQQ is attempting a very key break here on the ratio chart. So once we had the changing of the guard and Apple went from being the king of the market to NVDA, this ratio chart topped, and we've had this downtrend resistance line ever since for several years now at this point. And you got bulls pushing back up and over, ultimately after a 6-month downtrend confirmed without follow through. So that begs the question, is this just a yearly bull flag off of yearly 12 EMA on Apple QQQ? And we're going to see the king return? Time will tell, but that's a point towards it, getting over this downtrending resistance line. So still got to close the week out over it, but good work from bulls. Something that's definitely interesting is that NVDA is most certainly trading more like mags than it is like semiconductors. We know it was the first semiconductor to really turn on the afterburners, and it's just been chilling for a long time now. We've seen some decent moves in between, but really since August 2025 or something like that, we have had NVDA just kind of chill out. I guess we should give this move a little more credence, but when you compare to peers, we can say that NVDA's definitely just been chilling. And when we look at this recent action here and we compare that to mags, we can say this is definitely behaving more like mags than it is like SMH at the moment. So keep an eye on NVDA, watching out for weekly lower high. I don't know if I'd necessarily say that's the most likely scenario at this point because we're bumping right up on our weekly lower high resistance. But if we pop this level here of 213.99, we just go out to the 2-week, say we're looking for a 2-week lower high compared to all-time highs. But keep an eye on that correlational element with mags. Got a daily uptrend there. Got Google fixing to try and shape up a monthly higher low here, front running the monthly 12 EMA, and you got a pretty picture perfect inverse head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So that's worth watching. And yeah, we'll keep the show on the road. So you got Magnificent 7 catching a bunch of rotation. We know XLF is catching a bunch of rotation, just a daily 12 EMA rider. New all-time highs, not seeing a ton of follow-through, but doesn't really matter as long as you're riding daily 12 EMA. And then once that is lost, we'll look for a weekly higher low. Bulls would like to hold weekly 12 EMA. Do have to be cautious, kind of similar to what we're talking about with mags. These higher highs haven't really seen a ton of follow-through in the last couple years. But we'll just watch our trends within here. And we know XLF has been seeing rotation. The big question about XLF in terms of, okay, we've been seeing rotation. How notable is the rotation going to be? Is it just a flash in the pan for a ratio monthly bounce? Or is it going to be something bigger and a status quo shift? So if we get over monthly 12 EMA on XLF SPY ratio, then it's something bigger. If we reject, then relative weakness is going to come back into XLF. And we've got a daily uptrend, daily 12 EMA guide here on the ratio as we come into these monthly EMAs. And we've got a good example of how it could play out here on XLV SPY. So we've been talking about this same deal. It's a monthly 12 EMA rider. And if we get up and reject from monthly EMAs, then relative weakness is going to come back into healthcare. It's been relatively strong for a handful of weeks. That's been great to help with rotation. But here we are rejecting from monthly EMAs. So bulls could form a weekly higher low and another higher high and push above and try to cement a more notable shift in character. We'll have to go one step at a time. If we get another weak on this ratio chart next week, then that monthly EMA rejection is looking like it's gaining some favor. So as a result here, XLV has popped to new all-time highs. Yet another one not seeing a ton of follow-through on these new all-time highs. You could kind of paint a bit of a wedge there. And we are coming on down. Weekly consolidation underway. Lots of room for a weekly higher low, but relative weakness here currently. It's just a daily stair step straight off of the top. So speaking of daily stair steps off the top, we've got the same on XBI, and bulls are fixing to look to break it tomorrow. So weekly consolidation underway, certainly healthy at this point. For me, bigger picture guide is going to still be this 2-week 12 EMA, which is very far away. And the big question here will be, do bulls bounce big enough to regain the daily uptrend and shape up a quick weekly higher low and bull flag, or do bears confirm a daily downtrend to see deeper weekly consolidation and have us looking down to weekly 12 EMA, or more importantly for me, 2-week 12 EMA? So looking at IGV on the note of, are bulls going to bounce big enough to regain an uptrend, or are bears going to confirm the downtrend to signify a bigger shift? That's what we're watching on IGV, but on the weekly time frame. Still looking for this weekly lower high compared to 108.06. And the question will be, do bears confirm a weekly downtrend, have us looking back to this funky head and shoulders neckline, or do bulls bounce big enough to keep a weekly uptrend going? We're technically still in a weekly uptrend, but really keep follow through from happening on this monthly lower high being set, and ideally try to work back up to that 108.06. So keeping eyes on that. Let's see, XLI relative weakness back in here, but just for some weekly consolidation, riding weekly 12 EMA. So the main thing to be mindful of here, and just to be aware of the power of these dang ratio charts. We know that we're range bound on XLI SPY. Once we got up here, we said, could a shift be underway to get some relative weakness coming back into industrials? And that's exactly what we saw. So we'll see if this bounces here for a weekly bounce on the relative strength chart, if that aligns with a weekly 12 EMA on XLI. Time will tell. Let's go back up to the top. So you got all this rotation, money going everywhere, some names going up, some names going down. It's a choose your fighter type market, and as a result, you've just got the S&P 500 going sideways. So S&P 500 sideways, weekly 12 EMA rider, not much more to say. We're relatively strong compared to the NASDAQ because you've got all these sectors within showing some strength. So not going to trip up too much about what's going on within here. Do have a little bit of a rising wedge to keep an eye on if we were to go to higher highs without follow through. And if that were to play out, that would be bears playing some defense to ultimately keep us tightening on up sideways on the S&P 500. Looking at the NASDAQ, just pinning sideways. So in the shorter term, got a 12-hour EQ, low, high, higher, low, lower, high, higher, low. The direction this breaks will have us either looking down to support or looking up to resistance, but not a lot of clarity on some of these time frames on NQ. There's been decent clarity on the smaller time frames within, but when you go sideways, you don't want to deploy your trending tactics on the single fractal spread below. The more fractal spreads you can get away, and for the folks that haven't heard that term, you know, you got your nested time frames, your 5-minute nested within your hourly nested within your daily. Well, for stocks, I guess we're talking futures. We'll say 15-minute into 4 hour into daily, yada yada. Each one of those time frame relationships is a fractal spread. So if you're going, say, hourly into weekly, I prefer a fractal spread, more of like a 1-to-4, 1-to-6 ratio. So I personally like to do 15-minute to hourly, hourly to 4 hour, 4 hour to daily, daily to weekly. So if you're going hourly to weekly, it'd be hourly to 4 hour is 1, 4 hour to daily is 2, daily to weekly is 3. So that'd be a 3 fractal spread. So if you're watching the hourly trend while you're within a tightening range on the weekly, you're enough fractal spreads out that the lack of clarity that you would anticipate being sideways on the weekly, it's kind of dissipated between there. It's almost like you have these nested dolls, like the Russian stacking dolls or whatever. If you're a little doll on the inside, you're not going to be able to tell that it's snowing on the outside doll, something like that. So shout out to Tiffany for coming up with the snow analogy there for the Russian dolls. So yeah, not much to say. NASDAQ is going sideways. Russell got some weekly consolidation underway. If we hold the 12 EMA, that is healthy. So small caps seeing healthy consolidation at this point. And when we look at our IWM SPY ratio, we're down at weekly 12 EMA. Relative weakness the past couple weeks. If we bounce from here, that relative strength will come back into play. Let's talk about metals. So folks know I've been decently bearish on metals because we've been in downtrends, but have to always take what the charts are giving us, not what we want from the charts. Not that I wanted downside, but at this point, lower lows are continuing to lack follow through, and we've got a handful of signs that tell us to keep eyes on the metal space. I'm not looking bullish preemptively, but I know how to recognize a bullish pattern when I see one, and we have got basically this volume profile area of balance is acting as clean support down here within a falling wedge here on gold. So that is objectively a bullish pattern. Got 2-day 12 EMA as our guide on the way down. And it's not just that. There's a multifaceted thesis here. So you've got the same thing going on GDX. Same volume profile pull, same clean reactions from it, same falling wedge. And then when you look at the GDX GLD ratio, you've got bullish ratio divergence. So this ratio is important because it lets you know when you have risk on in the metal space. And of course, risk on is going to be associated with some upside. And you have this ratio holding higher lows, higher low here, while GDX has got these lower lows, lower low here, lower low here. That's bullish ratio divergence, and that's what bulls like to see in the metal space. So silver has a similar falling wedge that we can be looking at here. And then when we go and look at some other ratios, we've got this gold ES ratio. It's been getting dogged for a while now, just a daily 12 EMA rider to the downside. But if bulls can get up and over, then that would be a point towards metals coming back onto the map for a monthly bounce or something like that. We'll be looking for a monthly lower high on gold, but watching out for a character shift, but making bulls prove it if we're going to get it. If bulls don't prove it, then the bear show remains there. So you've also got your gold silver ratio. It behaves similar to that GDX GLD ratio in terms of risk on, risk off. Metals bulls like when this chart goes down. Are we going to see a monthly tightening range, low, high, higher, low, lower, high potentially compared to this 72, 78 level to tighten on up? If we see that, then that'll likely be monthly bounces in the metal space. So keep an eyes on that. Moving on to oil here. So oil continuing to see follow through after the monthly 12 EMA bounce. Previous support acting as resistance. Daily uptrend confirmed to see weekly bounce follow through. So we're watching for a weekly lower high. And now the question is, do bulls bounce big enough on the weekly to create room for a weekly higher low, attempt a weekly trend change, and have us confidently get a monthly higher low set? Time will tell. Looking at CVX, one of the names from the swing report here that dipped right on into the buy zone and is now cruising out of there, backtesting previous support, potential to act as resistance. Bulls want to crack through that. If they crack through that, that'll greatly increase the odds of a true monthly bounce from here. So keep an eyes on that. And on the note of the swing report, if you are interested in having top setups airdropped to your email and the best ones traded live by Lamont and all of those moves airdropped to your email, then check out the swing report at chartguys.com. This is not our current CVX position. This is the dashboard where all of the plays go. I don't want to scroll up to the current plays because that's what subscribers are subscribed for. But just an example of the dashboard, you get 2 new plays every week with updates managed and whatnot. And that is one from the report. We'll recycle plays. So you see CVX from an old play on there. And now you're seeing CVX from a new player. You're not seeing it, but it is there. Check out the swing report to get Lamont's best plays. All right, and now let's talk about Bitcoin. Now you could be saying similar falling wedge to the metals. So I've been vocally bearish about Bitcoin for quite some time now, and I'm not bullish still. That just is what it is. I recognize the potential that a shift could come underway from here, but my style, I'm not trying to nail bottoms. So with that, I won't be bullish until bulls prove something. So that just is what it is. And once the bottom comes, there will be people who were in on the bottom, and I will be happy for them. I will not be one of them. So is this the bottom? Is this the shift? There's a lot of talk about it in the crypto space right now. And there kind of just always is every bounce for a lower high. So definitely notable that we're not getting follow through on lower lows, but is this a bottoming bounce? Not in my opinion. Not just because it's so weak on Bitcoin itself, but a big part of it is the ratios. You need to see the ratios come along if we're going to see a character shift in the crypto space. This is the Bitcoin NASDAQ ratio. It's just a weekly 12 EMA rider to the downside. Everybody's saying, wow, this is really notable relative strength in Bitcoin. It's the first time we've had relative strength compared to the broad market in almost 2 months. But when you look at this chart, would you say anything about this bounce being notable? You're going to bounce in any downtrend. What would be notable to me is if we get over weekly 12 EMA. If we get over weekly 12 EMA on the ratio, that's when I'll go, what do we got going on Bitcoin? Is something shaping on up here? Until then, it's just a weekly bounce. Same on the Bitcoin SPY ratio. So just trying to keep things in check. Could this be the bottom? Absolutely, of course. Any time, anything can happen. This is the reality of this game. But are there signs that this is the bottom? To me, the primary sign would be these lower lows lacking follow through, looking at a macro falling wedge. So that's totally something that could be playing out. Is it anywhere close to confirming? No, it's not at this point. So a couple ways forward that we could get if we reject from weekly lower high resistance, could get a little dinky weekly inverse head and shoulders. If we break that, then we could be looking to the 2-week, looking for a 2-week lower high. Ultimately need like a 2-week uptrend to shift something back to bulls. So just more proving to be done. So ETH, a lot of people similarly calling for a bottom. Could this be a bottom? I think we're closer to a bottom than the top in a macro sense. This is just big balance that painfully for ETH holders we've been in for 5 years. You're down near the low end of balance. Long off the lows, short off the highs is the balance playbook. So would I be shocked at all if a bottom came from here? No, not at all. But is there any difference in terms of our macro of whether we bottom at 1500 or 900? Not really. It's just sloppy sideways balance. So is this a notable bounce? No, it's pretty much the same thing as what we've got going on with Bitcoin. The main thing of note is that we're getting lower lows without follow through, which tells you that watch out for bulls to potentially prove something, but that's bulls playing defense. You need to play offense to make money. So when we look at ETH, BTC, people say like, wow, this is really notable relative strength in ETH. Maybe, or maybe it's just 2-week downtrend getting its bounce. I don't know. Nobody knows. If this is a quarterly higher low in ETH, BTC, then we'll look for more sustained relative strength to come back into ETH. If bulls can confirm a quarterly uptrend to stay within a yearly tightening range on ETH, BTC, low, high, higher low, lower high, higher low. If this is a yearly higher low on ETH, BTC, then yeah, Tom Lee and the gang are going to be very pleased. So just going one step at a time. What would it take for me to get interested in Bitcoin? A convincing weekly uptrend would be notable to me and would have me look to pay a lot more attention to Bitcoin, look to put some risk on Bitcoin. But I'd be mindful that we'd just be looking for a monthly lower high, and then eventually you need a monthly uptrend. But if you look at other cycle bottoms, even if you wait till the monthly uptrend, you still have ample opportunity, and you know that once you show up, everybody's winning. And you're not going to be banging your head on the wall buying the weakest name in the market while you've got one of the strongest bull markets going on. So that's my whole thing with it. Keep an eyes on crypto, burden of proof on bulls. Keep an eyes on metal, burden of proof on bulls. Not looking to play the weakest stuff bullish. Well, you've got plenty of bullish things out there. So speaking of bullish things out there, just a little shout out. ATAI, some potential buyout news after hours here, trading up 50% to levels not seen since 2021. So very impressive move here for ATAI, and another one for the psychedelic sector, because we saw DFTX similarly get the old 50% gap up treatment and shockingly held on to those gains, the old episodic pivot as coined by Qualamagi. So yeah, psych holders definitely enjoying all of that. What else we got here before we wrap on up? Looking at Tesla, getting tight here. EQ tightening on up. A little bit of screwery in there today, but you're in a sideways range. You should treat it as a sideways range. Long off the lows, short off the highs. That's the playbook. That's how it goes. If this breaks bear, that's weekly lower high shaping up, tightening up on Tesla, and just continuation of our status quo on Tesla QQQ. We know once we got over the daily 12 EMA back in here, we had a nice bounce for us, but then we had to watch out for the weekly. The weekly came in and knocked us down. So if this ratio tightening range, really more of a descending triangle, if that breaks bear, then that's a weekly lower high being set on the ratio and the status quo maintaining. SPCX. Just trust your trends on this thing. Your block dirt breakdown, your valuation is still through the roof. And eventually, I think it's going to be a really strong name in the markets, of course. But don't get lost in the sauce. So daily stair step, daily downtrend, easy guide there. Can be watching TAN. We talked about that last week, I believe. Monthly 12 EMA coming into play here. Mindful of the potential of a quarterly lower high, but if you're not buying monthly 12 EMAs when you're looking for monthly higher lows and you call yourself a dip buyer, then what are you doing? You got daily 12 EMA resistance. And that I wasn't meaning to try to bully anybody into buying the dip. I'm not buying this TAN dip because it's a bandwidth thing. I'm focused elsewhere. It was more so just to highlight that's the game, at least for me, is buying higher lows off 12 EMAs. It's one of the highest probability things you can do. So there's a reason to be looking long on it. And if you got capital, you're looking to allocate into something, then this could be a place. So bulls need, I guess they got a dinky daily uptrend, but got to get over daily 12 EMA to try to break the weekly stair step and got to regain a weekly uptrend if we're talking about a monthly higher low shaping on up from here. All right. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for tuning on in. Hope everybody has a good rest of the week. Don't overtrade within the sideways chop of the indices. Don't trade a bearish name long. Don't short a bullish name to the downside. And just a little note here. If you're having a hard time with the semiconductor drawdown at the moment, then you got to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask yourself how you're going to do for monthly consolidation, because we have not even entered monthly consolidation. There's been some data coming out about I got that spelled right, about the Kospi and how many Korean traders are getting liquidated and margin called and all of that stuff. And it's just monthly consolidation. First time in 100 or 310% move. And you get monthly consolidation by 12%, and you got millions of people getting margin called. So don't be one of those people. Take what the chart is giving you, not what you want from the charts. You're not handcuffed to any of your positions, and protect yourself if we see some monthly consolidation. Doesn't mean you have to sell everything, but consider some hedges. If you're an active trader and you get monthly consolidation, you can say, okay, just as an example on the Kospi here. All right, well, we got a daily downtrend for the first time in eons. I'm going to pop on a short and I'm going to walk the stop down on daily lower highs. And as long as we're in a daily downtrend, then you're protected, something like that. So main thing is if you're having a hard time when the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are just sideways, then you're not going to be in for a good time when we see monthly consolidation there. So make sure that you're prepared for whatever we get. It's easy when you have up only to forget that it's possible to descend. So don't get it twisted. Be prepared for whatever. Respect and appreciate that the market is seeing rotation, and that's keeping the broad market healthy, keeping the bull market alive at this point, and you just don't want to fight said rotation. All right, have a great rest of your week. Thanks for listening. I will talk to you later. Farewell.